Welcome back to Comics with Drew. I'm Drew, and here is my review of Shadow War Alpha. Now, if you've been following my videos, I was going to do a review of Batman 122, but then I saw that it says Shadow War Part 2. And I was very, very upset because this book doesn't tell you where Shadow War Part 1 is. Well, Shadow War Part 1 is Shadow War Alpha. Number 1, there will be blood. I drink your milkshake. No, sadly, there's no Daniel Day-Lewis in Shadow War Alpha. But I went to the comic shop and I picked up Shadow War Alpha and I went to the counter to pay for it and I started ranting at Rich, who's this guy that works at this comic shop that I went to pick this up. And Rich is like, yeah, man, DC isn't exactly on point with their crossover trade dress, but this is what the reading order is. I was like, yeah, but I already know what the reading order is, Rich. And so then this other dude is standing there. He goes, oh, well, the first one is Shadow War Alpha. It's on the shelf right over there. I'm like, yeah, I got it. This is the whole point. Shadow War Alpha, number 1. I don't normally get crossover books because I find that it a lot of the time is silly. But because a book that I have on my pull has Shadow War in it, I was like, all right, fine. I'll go get the first issue of this. Well, this is an awesome comic. Let me tell you what, I really love this comic book. It is $6, but it's totally filled with art. I mean, there's not really any... I mean, it's a pretty thick book, but there's not any advertisements for the most part in this book. It's just a straight story. And it's a great story. The plot is essentially that Ra's al Ghul here has decided to surrender to the authorities because he wants to share the Lazarus pits with the world so that humanity can be improved upon, apparently. Naturally, everybody is suspicious about this. Talia isn't exactly totally on board with it, but, you know, Ra's is the boss. So things go south once they decide that they're going to turn themselves in. I'm not going to spoil any of this for you, but I will tell you that there is a scene in here. There's a scene in this book that actually got me misty-eyed. It got me choked up. I can't believe it. It's very rare when I see a writer that can actually craft a story and craft a scene in such a way that it's actually emotionally affecting in comics. It's a very, very specific skill and it's very tough. But Williamson sets up a scene in here with Damian, which is, by the way, my favorite Robin. I love Damian because Damian has no F's left to give. Damian is the Robin that Batman deserves, to be perfectly honest with you, in my opinion. He actually really writes Damian fantastically in this book. And there's a scene that happens, and I can't spoil it for you, but the reaction and interaction with Batman or Bruce and Damian is just really touching. And it's something that is not really seen in comics. And for that scene alone, the book is worth the price. The story is actually a very, very good story. And I'm quite frankly, I'm kind of surprised. Normally, I wouldn't really want to get into this kind of thing, but the way that it's written and the way that it's paced, it's just a great book. This actually reminds me of World's Finest. And the reason why it reminds me is not because the story has anything to do with World's Finest. It doesn't. I love this book because of the fact that it's just a straight comic book story. There is no agenda to it. It's just Joshua knows the characters. He knows the relationships. He knows what the scores are for everybody because he's been writing most of these books. I think he's been writing Deathstroke and Robin, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, he's been writing Batman for a little bit here for a couple of issues. But he understands these characters really well and knows what the dynamics are. And I think that's what is the most important thing about writing effective comic books or writing effective anything, honestly. A lot of writers want to take the comic characters and paste them onto their personal psychoses, but Williamson is just writing the characters the way that the characters are. And there is no other outside, meta narrative. There's nothing like that at all. It's just a great story. It's a really good story. As much as I don't typically go for crossover events, I'm going to have to recommend this one. This is a really good one. I'm not necessarily a big Deathstroke fan, but the way that they actually incorporate the character into this is just really phenomenal. So I'm a big fan. It's 5 stars. The art is fantastic. The writing is fantastic. There's no sneak attack of personal or social or political agendas. It's just a solid, good book. And aren't really any ads until like the very, very end of the book. So it's a solid $6. You're getting so much bang for your buck in this. I really like the book. So I can't really say too much else about it. I don't want to spoil anything about this book. Shadow War Alpha #1 DC, it was out last week, and I'm glad that I went and got it because I definitely want to read the second part of the story in this book. And I'm glad that I didn't read this book without getting this book. Look, guys, Shadow War Part 2. This is Shadow War Alpha. Get your trade dress on point, DC. Say Shadow War crossover event or something, and then Shadow War crossover Part 2. Make sure that people know that the first part is available here in this book. Normally I'm complaining about things like money grabs, but I honestly really believe this is a great, solid book. So, like I said, art's great, writing is great, dialogue is great. I got choked up on this book. I can't believe it. I have never read a comic book in my life where I got a little tear in my eye. I've never read a comic book in my life where there was as much of a emotional scene as what's done here. So it's really, really well written. Again, I cannot recommend it enough. It's the best book I've read in a while. It's definitely the best book I've read this week as far as mainstream comics are concerned. That's all I have to say about it. So again, Shadow War Alpha #1. Go buy it. It's available in comic stores right now. And then go pick up Batman 122 to read the continuing story because you're going to want to do it. Trust me on this one. Thanks for watching Comics with Drew. I'm Drew, and I'll catch you next time.